Folks, I told y'all I was going to do it, so I'm out here doing it. I'm cutting trees. Pretty good sized pines. I've already gotten them pulled out. I got just the tops of the three tops right here that ain't too big. But what I'm having to do is I'm having to cut roads back in here to it because this stuff has done gotten so thick. And the hydraulic lines under this lull, it's not really designed to be in the woods, so hydraulic lines are all exposed underneath, and you can't just go blowing through here and tearing through this stuff. I mean, it'll do it, but then you're gonna start snatching hydraulic lines out from under it. Way too expensive. So I just cut a little trail. I mean, it'll run over all this small stuff. It's not gonna bother it, but you start running over 2 or 3 inch oak trees, pine trees, yaupon, sweet gum, and all that. And then when you tear one off or you break the top off of it and then you come back over it, it'll grab one of those lines and it'll snatch it up. But that's what I'm doing. If it wasn't for this piece of equipment right here, it sure would make it tough on me. But it's good for the framing and the sawmill part of it. But I've got 4 or 5 more trees I want to take out of that, and then I'm going to have to start cutting in a different spot and cut in from a different way because it's just super thick in here. And if I would burn this off, every couple of years like I'm supposed to, then it would help this situation. It would keep all of this stuff killed off so it wouldn't get so big. But when I start burning it off, then I start messing with my cover and all for the rabbits and the quail and stuff like that. It seems to hurt the population on that, so I just stopped burning it years ago and just letting it grow up. But now it's getting to be a problem because you can see how thick this stuff is. I mean, it gets bad. It's like that all the way around. So I'm having to cut through it and push through it and get to these pine trees that are just scattered out through here. But we're gonna get it hanging there, and I'll get y'all some wood cut up in a little bit. All right, folks, got them out of the woods. Where I got the first load anyway. I think I ended up with 21, and then I started cutting on the go. So getting them trimmed down so I can go get some more. I do like carrying them out with the lull versus dragging them with a tractor because you're gonna fill up the bark with dirt, sand, stuff like that. It's gonna, gonna eat your blades up pretty quick. So the cleaner you can keep these logs with these band mills, with anything, the longer, the more life you're gonna get out of your blade, the more board feet you're gonna cut before it needs sharpening or replacing or whatever. So I try to keep them super clean. If not, you can get a pressure washer. If you have to drag them out or something, you get a pressure washer and you can blow, or a broom or something and clean the mud out of the bark or, sand or whatever. But cutting 2 by 10s right now. And I found a couple of good ones, good tight grain stuff that's, cut 2 by 10s out of. So that's what this is right here. I'm just 1.5 by 9.5. And you don't have much dry on this. I mean, they might shrink up 1/8 on the width, and then maybe a 1/16 or so on the thickness. So it's not that big of a deal. I always go with the standard size lumber. I don't plane it and all that right there. I just go with it rough. But I always go with standard sizes, and that way if I do run out and I get in a bind, I can go up there and I can get, I can find lumber at the lumber company that's going to be the same size. So I try to keep it the same, just keep it simple. I used to make them 2 inches thick and 10 inches wide, and it was just, like I said, if you run out or something and you need a couple of them, then they just don't look right. So I just started going, especially on some of this better lumber, I'm just going 1.5 inches. I was hoping that this one didn't have the knots that it does because it's not as good as framing lumber. It makes good paneling, makes beautiful paneling with the knots in it, but it's not as strong. But what I'll do is end up making, like headers over the doors and on these knotty ones like that. And on the other butt cuts that don't have the knots in them, I'll make my floor joists. But I'm going to cut a bunch of 1 by 2. I'm just getting started trying to restock because you can see everything's way down. And that's what I'm working on. I'll get y'all caught up in just a little bit and see how much we can get cut this evening. Oh, ain't that a pretty log right there, folks? Beautiful log. I always cut them 12 foot and 6 inches or 16 foot and 6 inches or whatever. And that way you can saw, You know, you can cut the length what you want, and if you want 14s or whatever, it'll clear up at that. You got plenty of room in case they split at the end or something like that. You got a little extra. And on the ends right here, I like to go, I like to figure like 2 inches, like 4 inches really bigger than what you're wanting to square up. So if you want 1x10s, I would go, you know, 14-inch log. If the log's straight, you should be able to clear up at 10x10. You know, a square out of this 14-inch log. Oh, sometimes you might have a little bit of bark on the corners of something like that, but most of the time you're going to about square up at about 4 inches over, 4 or 5 inches over what you're wanting to cut. So I've cut enough of them that I can just look at it and tell, you know, I can tell what I'm going to get out of it, you know, by the time it rolls up on the mill, even if it has got some crooks in it. When I'm cutting 2x10s, I do like to use the lower cuts on the logs because of the knots. I think I explained that a while ago. And I do like these outside cuts on these logs also because the grain is so much tighter because this tree started growing slower the older it got. And it was really cruising right here. I mean, we were putting on some size in its younger years, and it's not going to be as good a lumber right there in that heart, but I can also use those 2x10s for something that doesn't have quite the, you know, the pressure on them. So it all works out. But if I'm going to make 2x10s, then I'm going to cut this thing 9 by 9.5, and then that way I can slice it into 2x10s. If I'm going to make 1x10s, I'm going to cut it 10x10. I'm going to square it up at 10x10, so it'll be just a square cut out of this round log. I mean, it's super simple. It just depends on the crooks. I always put the small end of the log to the cutter head, and then that way you know what you're working with, because if you flip-flop them and you got, you know, 3 inches difference from one end to the other, when you get down on the other end, you're going to run out. You have bark all over the place. So I like to always put the small end to the blade. Y'all hang in there and let's see how many 2x10s I can get out of that. Look at there, y'all. I got 1 1x10, 3 1x8s, and 6 2x10s out of that one log. You can see the square that I was talking about a while ago being 9 inches by 9.5 inches. There it is. These in the middle being something that you don't want to put a lot of stress on, but these on the outside you can load those up pretty good. They're gonna be strong, especially these outside, these very, you know, outside cuts are gonna be really strong. But there's still always a use for these right here, whether it be header over a door or a window or something. I mean, if you're only spanning a couple of foot or 3 foot between 2 cripples, I mean, that's going to carry the load, especially when you got 2 of those and then you got a 2x4 on the top and the bottom. Plywood in the middle. It's not going anywhere. Keep a good sharp blade on your, or band on your mill, and she'll cut straight. You won't have any wag. I mean, you can see these things are straighter than a gun barrel. Down through there. Oh, I can get this camera lined up. Boom. I mean, they're gun barrel straight, folks. Oh, they sent me a carbide blade to try out. It cuts a little rough. I mean, you can see the chatter in it, but you get a lot of life out of that blade. But when it's dull, it's dull. I can't sharpen it, so I have to just toss it. So I'll cut with it until it starts wagging, or, you know, trying to hunt a soft grain or whatever to get wavy, and then I'll toss it and go back to my original blades that I can sharpen. But I do like this. I do like the carbide tooth. It's just like I said, it makes it chatters. It chatters and doesn't cut quite as smooth as my other blades that I can set the teeth on. Well, look at that stack over there. It's getting big. Yep, gonna get a little bit bigger before I get done. Hope y'all enjoyed the videos. Hope that'll help y'all out. Appreciate y'all.